And more on the breaking news we've been following all day. The Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade has thrown the legality of abortion to the states.
But some areas haven't updated their laws on abortion in decades, and that includes Wisconsin. CBS News' Lana Zak is in Madison, Wisconsin. Lana, thanks for joining us. Describe the scene for us there. What's the mood on the ground?
Hey, Michelle and Tanya. You know, it's a hot day. There are some people here who are very angry. There are others who are concerned. Some younger people who feel energized about their ability to protest and see if there can be legislative changes. I also spoke with abortion providers, the head of Planned Parenthood, who was very worried today about what this was going to mean for her patients. I also spoke with some anti-abortion protesters outside of that Planned Parenthood clinic. They said, grateful. They were singing songs, hymns, and praying because this was something they said that they'd been waiting for. Most of them seemed to be teenagers who were part of different youth groups, Christian youth groups. And for them, they said this was something that they had been working towards since they were little kids. So it really is a full mixed bag. And in part, that reflects some of the shock and the suddenness of what's happening here in Wisconsin.
And Lana, Wisconsin is unique when it comes to abortion access law. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, most people, when they're thinking about the states that have today immediately banned abortion, they're thinking of more of the southern states. Here we are in Wisconsin, northern part of the state, and it is one of only 9 states that haven't enacted recent trigger laws about abortion. But in fact, today, abortions were stopped in the state because of an 1849 law. That's right, 1849, 71 years before women had the right to vote. It predates the Civil War. It follows just a year after Wisconsin itself became a state. And part of what the providers here have to say is that it doesn't keep pace with medical technology. One of the providers said she was very concerned because it is a near total ban on abortion. I want to play some of what Dr. King had to say. She's the director of Planned Parenthood here in Wisconsin.
You think about a law written in 1849. This was a time 14 years before the Emancipation Proclamation. So it really had nothing to do with modern medicine. And so as a physician, it's a very difficult law to interpret. We know if we violate it, we become a felon and could be in prison for 6 years.
Another doctor I spoke with said that with imaging technology and with medical advancements, they can tell now if a fetus is not going to make it to viability, meaning it has a fetal abnormality and it's never going to become a baby. In that case, doctors recommend usually that a medical abortion, a medication abortion rather. In this case, right now in Wisconsin, that woman, even knowing that the child, even if she wanted that child, that it wouldn't survive outside of her body, would now be forced to carry it to whatever natural end it came to, even if that meant, and this is the example that one of the doctors, Dr. Kristen Layson told me, that if it meant that she had to go into public places and hear congratulations and people asking her questions about a baby that she knew wouldn't survive, that according to the 1849 law that's currently ruling the day here in Wisconsin, that would be her situation.
Lana, can you describe to us exactly what that 1849 law entails? I mean, what does it set forth?
So it's very gray, in part because it was written at a time where there weren't a lot of discussions about the things that you'll see in modern laws. Basically, it criminalizes anybody who helps somebody abort a baby. And in that case, they say that it's punishable as a felony. That's why doctors who in the state feel like It's actually a gray area. We've heard from the governor, who's a Democrat. We've heard from his attorney general. They think that the 1849 law does not apply because it hasn't been enforced for nearly 50 years. But as long as there's that gray area, no doctor is willing to take on right now the possibility of committing a felony and being held criminally liable for that. So there is no exception in the case of rape or incest, in the case of the fetus's viability, the health of the mother. What I was told by one provider here is that the only way that an abortion could happen in the state is if the mother was critically in danger of dying, and then 3 doctors would need to agree to allow for an abortion in the state right now. And in some rural areas of Wisconsin, that could be impossible.
So what would you say is the top concern then of not just abortion providers, but healthcare providers when it comes to women in those situations, there in Wisconsin?
They feel hamstrung. They feel like they tell me that they don't believe that they can provide their patients with the best medical care. And as a physician, Dr. King was telling me how difficult it is to feel like on one hand, she has an obligation to provide the best possible medical care to her patient, but on the other hand, she is now working in a gray area in which the state and others could come after her with criminal charges if she were to perform an abortion, even a medication abortion, which in other states can be provided through the mail. Here in Wisconsin, there were already some strict limitations. They needed to be done over the course of 2 days, first with the consultation, then a 24-hour waiting period, and only a doctor in person could hand it to a woman who needed that. But they say that they really just are living in this position where it's untenable for them, where they aren't able to do anything but consult with their patients, and then they say try and refer them to another state.
Yeah, it sounds like they already had sort of a back burner law in place that just sort of strengthens what has taken place today.
Yeah.
And I'm curious.
On that, Michelle, I'm sorry, I just think that you're bringing up a really important point because this was in the back burner. They also knew that this was likely coming after the leaked SCOTUS draft. And so Planned Parenthood had decided that after Saturday, they would not schedule any more abortions here in the state of Wisconsin. This ruling today, though, came suddenly. It came before they expected to get it. And that meant, they said, that 60 to 70 women who plan to get abortions today and tomorrow are now being denied those services.
Wow. Oh, really interesting set of circumstances in Wisconsin, Lana Zak.
Happening immediately.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that story or that angle of the story to us.
Absolutely.